It's Wild Ones Pro Show time. It is day 5 and it is the time trial.
And as predicted, it was a great day on the bike for time trial heavyweight Remco Evenepoel, but not such a great day for GC hopeful Jonas Vingegaard. So thanks to Garmin and Van Rysel for supporting the show and helping us bring you free highlights. Now let's get into them. Over to you, Katie.
So, European time trial champion Visma Lease Bike's Edoardo Affini was the first major contender of the day for the stage win as a time trial specialist.
Wasn't Jonas Vingegaard was actually following in the team car whilst he was out on the road, wasn't he?
Yes, he was out on a recon watching the lines Affini took, which is a great move because Affini is an absolute aficionado of this discipline. And he proved it, taking half a minute off the best time up to that point and setting a time of 37.15 at that point, which was the best. And he stayed in the hot seat pretty much all afternoon. After that, loads of riders came and went without making any impact on the time of the Italian. You might have expected Wout van Aert to have a go in a discipline that he has won in at the Tour de France before, but he made it very clear that he wasn't really out for going for that stage by just pretty much taking it easy on the bike. So he was out of the game. We then moved into the upper echelons of the GC with Roglic, the first of the main favourites to take off for his effort, but he was down by half a minute by the first time check, and he eventually finished 1:18 down on Remco Evenepoel. As expected, the world and Olympic champion really delivered. He built throughout his effort, making major gains on the final part of the course and finished 33.06 ahead of Affini in a time of 36.42.
Nice.
It was Vingegaard next. He set off and it was immediately clear that he was out of sorts.
Yeah, he was like constantly sliding forward on his saddle, wasn't he? It was like every few seconds he was pushing himself back to the back, then he'd slide forward again, push himself to the back and slide forward again.
He was 20 seconds down on Pogacar and Remco at the first time check already, and it just got worse from there. He ended up finishing 13th position on the stage in 38.03, which was 1:21 down on Evenepoel.
Oh. So then it was Pogacar's turn.
Yeah, and Pogacar put in a really strong ride. He was in his sort of hastily tailored polka dot skin suit that he had to have put together for today. And he finished only 16 seconds down on Remco Evenepoel, which is a really strong effort from him. Obviously, he's a great time trialist. He's great at everything. But he actually took the yellow jersey in the process. With Mathieu van der Poel riding in his wake, he was unable to hang on to the lead in a discipline that he's not known for being very favourable towards.
Yeah, he's definitely not a time trialist, but he did finish 18th overall. So he was, he was making an effort. He could have just accepted it, drifted into the latter end of the results and saved himself for other stuff. But he wanted to, I guess if you're in yellow and you're the last off, you don't want to be 10 minutes down.
Absolutely, yeah. He honoured the jersey. That's what we call
sure,
it, isn't
yeah.
it? When you just go out and you do your best. And he that strong ride, 18th position in that company is really not too bad at all. We also, outside of the top names, we'd really like to give a shout out to our Airbnb Hotel's Kevin Vauquelin, the local boy out in the white jersey, and he delivered an incredibly strong ride to finish in 37.31, which was 5th place in the end. So really strong from him.
Yeah, he's having a great tour, isn't he?
He is. He really is. So to round that back up for you, final results. Remco Evenepoel, number 1. Pogacar, second, plus 16 seconds. Affini was third, plus 33. Armorai was fourth, plus 35. Kevin Vauquelin, 5th, plus 49. Lipowitz, 6th, plus 58 seconds. Then we jumped down to 12th, Roglic, plus 1 minute and 19. And then unlucky number 13, Vingegaard, 1 minute 21 seconds down on today's stage, which has changed the GC standings, hasn't it?
Yep, the GC is all over the place. So we have a new yellow jersey. As we said earlier on in this episode, it is now Pogacar. Remco is second with a plus 42 seconds. Vauquelin, third, plus 59. Vingegaard, fourth, 1 minute 13 down. His teammate Jorgensen is 1 minute 22 down. And then 8th and 9th is Roglic and Lipowitz, who are both Red Bull, 2 minutes 30, 2 minutes 31. The reason I think it's quite interesting here is we've got Vingegaard and Jorgensen very, very close, and Roglic and Lipowitz very, very close. Are we going to see change in leader for Visma and or a change in leader for Red Bull?
I feel like that would be, it feels to me too premature to be making those calls. I don't know. What do you think, Kay?
Yeah, I think it's too soon, unless one of them is actually struggling with something that we haven't seen, an illness or injury that hasn't been picked up yet. We've seen Vingegaard having a bad day on the bike today, so we'll wait and see what the outcome is of that, and if there is anything more to it.
Yeah, we were talking about this. We were debating whether to hang around before we film this episode to see if we could find any interviews from Jonas. But Jimmy, you made the point that, you know, if you're not at the top end, actually, you don't necessarily need to give the interviews, and perhaps he would scuttle back to the team bus.
Well, if I was him, I would be straight out of the public eye into recovery mode.
Yeah. So quickly back to the jerseys. There were actually sprint points on offer today at the finish line. And because of that, Pogacar is now technically in all 3 jerseys, yellow, polka dot green. And we have Evenepoel in white. I would love to see Pogacar stride out tomorrow in a sort of tricolor, a new tricolor jersey of all of those 3 colours. Not going to happen, but it would be cool to see. So I think we have already mentioned it, but I think we need to talk some more about Vingegaard. Massive issues today. I realised I haven't actually put in a fluff up of the day, but it feels like his whole day was the fluff up of the day. And I think had this stage come, you know, if this was stage 17, 18, 19, one of the latter stages, we might be going, look, maybe it's fatigue setting in. This is stage 5. And yes, there's been a couple of punchy stages, but in terms of fatigue, it shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it's odd. He has worked very hard in the punchy stages, which is normally not something we see him do. You know, we've discussed it. He normally sits in the wheel and hides a bit like a more traditional GC rider would. And he has been up there and contesting, but it shouldn't, as you say, fatigue shouldn't be building at this stage. It is worth noting, I think, that they were riding into a headwind, the later riders. Affini didn't have to contend with it, but Evenepoel and Pogacar faced the same. So they were riding out into a headwind and back with that tailwind. And perhaps that headwind had more of an impact on Jonas as a more slight rider, not someone who has the sort of power to drive through the wind like Evenepoel does.
I was just thinking while you were speaking there about the comments from Vingegaard's wife. She had said she'd put something out, some sort of conversation with the media a couple of days ago saying Visma are putting too much pressure on Vingegaard. Do you think that there's merit in that? I don't know. Just now looking at this, I imagine that there's going to be a debrief with Team Visma after this stage. Like, oh my gosh, we're in trouble. You know what I mean? A minute down, it's a lot to gain back up.
It's an interesting point. As you say, his wife made comments about the pressure and the fact that it's...
Benny, who's sitting just off camera over here, listening to our podcast, make sure the audio's good. He's literally just been watching some of old Vingegaard TT rides, performances, if you want to call them that, and he says that it's quite consistent for him to shuffle on the saddle. So maybe there hasn't actually been a mistake. That actually suggests more so that he's just not performed well today.
It's just a bad day at the office.
But I think the point you've made is really relevant, though. He's very, very slight. He's very, very small. His, from my understanding, which is very limited, I will add, his best performances, and the one that we've talked about, which is the statement headlines in the past of is he doping, came on a very hilly time trial, which is where you would expect him to perform. Whereas what we've actually had today is a very flat, headwindy time trial, which is absolutely not suited to him.
No, absolutely not. It's a good point. So perhaps it's a storm in a teacup and we're just sort of overhyping the impact. But if essentially it leaves him over a minute down on GC, which is, you know, with Pogacar in this form is not good news any way you slice it.
Well, I have got a way of slicing it. It's stage 5, which is incredibly early. Pogacar has historically had a reputation of going too hard too soon and then blowing himself up in the latter stage of the race. And Vingegaard has the exact opposite, which is get stronger as the race goes on. So I'm going to bring back my chipping away t-shirt. It's coming out of the drawer for tomorrow.
Listen, it's wishful thinking. I think, and I think a lot of fans have a problem with this in the media, that it's almost like you want to create the rivalry or the drama so that you have hope, you have something to talk about every day. Because if we came on the show and went, it's day 1 and Pogacar's going to win the Tour. It's day 2 and Pogacar's going to win the Tour. It's day 5 and look, Pogacar's 1 minute ahead and is still going to win the Tour. What are we doing here? So I think I understand, Jimmy, and I know you're happy to be the agitator in this, but I don't know, like I think sometimes you just have to like look at what's in front of you. The guys...
But it doesn't feel sustainable though. He's going 100%.
Well, it was last year.
Was he going this hard though?
Yeah, he didn't blow up in the mountains.
But was he going? Was the race on from stage 1?
I don't know. I mean, I just like look at his Palmares this year. Look at his race results. He's. I just think he's capable. But I don't know. Like I don't.
Well,
I also think
we will find out.
Yeah, we will find out. And I also think like this isn't the only story of the Tour. You know what I mean? Like there are other competitions going on. There are other things going on.
Other competitions. Isn't
Pogacar's winning all of them.
Winning all of them?
yeah, that's true. Anyway, moving on. Elsewhere, we've had a couple of non-starters this morning, haven't we?
Yes, we had 2 non-starters. One was Emilien Jonier of Total Energies, the rider we saw crash into a barrier at high speed on stage 3. He rode on despite the injuries that he sustained yesterday. He rode on despite the injuries that he sustained on stage 3. But it turns out that he had a fractured shoulder, actually shoulder blade. I've been corrected since then. And he rode with that yesterday, which is kind of crazy to consider. He didn't start this morning, and neither did Jasper de Boist of Lotto, who was poorly.
I don't know if there's this concussion check thing that they're doing now. How has he managed to get through the concussion check when his face was like smashed up? So he clearly had a head impact. You'd think, therefore, they would have gone, well, maybe he passes the concussion test, but you go, well, he still had a bang in the head.
And surely a pretty sore shoulder as well.
Yeah.
Don't know, hard as nails, that boy. Interestingly, I saw Israel Premier Tech's Michael Woods criticised the Tour organisers, the A.S.O. He suggested that they glorify crashes while shifting responsibility to riders. So the quote from him, he says, whatever A.S.O. says, they love crashes. Despite their so-called attempts to make the sport safer, when you see the highlights, you get the feeling that blood, broken bikes and riders limping into an ambulance is exactly what they want to show. I would dispute that a little bit. I don't think that, yes, it does end up in the highlights because you can't just censor what actually happened. If the A.S.O. like, okay, we are receiving the highlights from the A.S.O. now. If those weren't in there, I'd be going, they're trying to censor their race. They're trying to make it look safer than it is, kind of thing. You know, I think it's important to highlight that these crashes happened. I think it's what stimulates the conversation around safety and makes us all sit up and think about it more. You can't just not show it.
But they also have an impact on the race results, and therefore sometimes they are relevant
exactly
from a highlights perspective.
Totally. And yes, perhaps it is sensational. Perhaps it does get you a good headline sometimes. We know that. But you can't just pretend it didn't happen.
I think what they would prefer is there to be no crashes, but loads of attacking cycling.
Yes.
Whereas they're probably trying to design courses which perhaps become less safe, that are trying to encourage people to attack, for breakaways to go away, for other people to just kind of have a punt at a stage. Because at the end of the day, the more changes in the results, the more people that are able to win stages, the more entertaining the race is.
Totally. I think today's the first stage where we haven't seen anyone come off their bikes. And
well, Pogacar nearly did.
He very, very nearly did. He had a little bunny hop, some sort of.
I think he drifted wide on a corner, nearly hit the barrier, didn't quite, and then he was doing some bunny hops, which kind of they usually do that if their mechs have stopped working, or maybe if their chains come off, or just to get their bike firing again.
Yeah, but anyway, my point still stands. But I saw Pro Cycling Stats described yesterday's stage as Tour de Obstacle. We actually didn't mention the crashes that happened yesterday, and because it came to a point where it's like, I don't know, is it? We're sort of trying to pick and choose what's highlights at this point, and maybe the crashes became so the norm.
Normal.
Yeah, but there was one where riders were sort of squeezing into a road narrowing. There was road furniture around and that kind of thing. Nothing serious yesterday, but I don't know whether it's just part of the sport because you're riding on a road and there's going to be stuff in the way, especially when you're trying to design courses over hundreds of kilometres, or whether they do need to do more.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, isn't it, between trying to pick, as Jimmy said, a really good attacking course and inevitably having to pass through towns and villages. It's road racing. These things are there. You know, if people aren't complaining about gravel stages not being on the course, then they've got to ride on the roads, which is what they do ordinarily, and that necessarily means passing round roundabouts and through traffic islands. And I think it seems that the amount of road furniture in Europe in general, and especially in France, seems to have been increasing over the years because of road safety, which is a good thing. But it then creates an obstacle for riders travelling at incredibly high speeds. So it's part and parcel. But, you know, as you say, we need to recognise that maybe there are better ways of looking after riders, like not putting them back on their bikes when they've bumped into a barrier at 50 kilometres an hour with their face, for example.
Well, in other news, yesterday's stage 4 ended in drama, both on and off the course. Because what we've learned is that a man was reportedly threatening spectators with a knife and ended up being shot in the leg by riot police. So this was someone in the crowd. Cops pursued him. There was a struggle, and the man apparently stabbed one of them in the chest, at which point another officer fired the shot. Thankfully, the officer that was stabbed was wearing a protection vest, so they were uninjured. But the French outlet Le Parisien is reporting that the attacker was a 21-year-old man, and they say he was on the run from hospital. So naturally, it sparked some safety concerns from the teams. Katie, you were actually in the paddocks for stage 1 and 2. What's the security situation there like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've got very limited experience, as you say. It's just that was my first time at the race, but it was really interesting to observe the workings of the race, especially inside that paddock, which was very crowded, lots of press, obviously loads of team staff, mechanics, managers, the riders sort of having to pick their way through masses of VIPs and press to get to sign on and back. And, you know, it was understandably chaotic. It's the Tour de France. It's a circus. However, I actually would say that the security, when I was there, looked really good. Mm-hmm. There were police very visible all around the course, inside and outside of the paddock, even, you know, to the point where there was armed police in front of the Israel Premier Tech van for understandable reasons, I guess. So yeah, I feel like I want to say organised chaos, but in terms of security, they obviously are very much on top of it, and the police are very present.
Yeah, that's the team paddocks, which are obviously more controlled. I guess in some ways it's harder to control the crowds that are out on the race course compared to how you would, for example, at a football match where everyone's going through a turnstile, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But it does seem that there is quite a large police presence, especially around these starts and these finishes in larger towns, which seem to attract the larger crowds.
Yeah, again, as we referred to with the road furniture, it's another hazard of racing in a public arena. You know, anybody can come out and watch the race, which is a fantastic thing, and it's part of the sport. We wouldn't want to be barriering roads in front of people's houses and making it in any way restricted, because that just wouldn't feel right. But obviously you need fans and spectators to respect the riders and to respect each other as well. So yeah, this is kind of disturbing. It's
disturbing, but then actually good to see that there was such an immediate and it seems like appropriate response to it.
Well, yeah, they, as far as we're aware, there was no injuries apart from to the knife wielding person. Mm-hmm. I was censoring myself then.
Next up, we've talked a lot about the Tour special jerseys and the pressure that the riders are under to get into one of them. So we've come up with a solution which might take some of that pressure off. We'll just create some more of them.
you see, we want to spread some love, give some recognition to the riders that perhaps, don't get it.
So we've come up with 4 additional jerseys. The first one is the Hawaiian jersey. If you watch our podcast last year, you will know this is a reintroduction. It didn't come from us. It was on someone else's podcast first. Maybe Geraint Thomas, not taking credit, but we have adopted it and it has returned. Second one is the neon jersey. Third one is the doomed jersey. And fourth is the People's Champion. So we'll run you through what they mean and who are our nominees so far. First up, the Hawaiian jersey. This is going to be for the rider having the most chilled tour. Never off the back and never on the front either. So who have we picked for that one?
So I would like to put Primoz Roglic in for this one.
Okay.
He is part of the big 4 GC contenders, but he is the master of the DNF at the Tour. DNF being did not finish.
Yeah, I feel like we basically haven't seen Roglic this year.
I feel like him finishing with our Hawaiian jersey would actually be a positive result for him.
Yes, I think unfortunately that probably is true, isn't it?
Yeah, he's certainly had his share of issues, obviously, in the past at the Tour. But so far, the issues that he's had have surrounded losing a bit of time here and there, having a mechanical issue yesterday. But he hasn't really been caught up in anything serious, and he's been quoted as saying, as we mentioned yesterday, that he doesn't really care about the time loss. He's just hoping to get to Paris.
Yeah, I think a chilled tour would be a great improvement for him. So, hopefully that continues. If he can get the Hawaiian jersey to the end, then go Roglic, I think.
I quite like how we're talking about the jerseys like they're like actual jerseys.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They are. Got to be in it. Okay, next one, the neon jersey. This is for the rider drawing attention to themselves.
Yeah, so we've chosen for this one Lenny Martinez.
Yeah, he has been the antithesis, I would say, of the Hawaiian so far. He has been both hanging off the back and out front, and within the first 4 days.
Yeah, pretty much nothing in between. So the first 3 stages, he was hanging off the back, making us all wonder what was wrong with him. Was he ill? Like, is something wrong? Like, is he going to maybe pull out of the Tour? And then yesterday, he just blazed to the front from flag drop, was an instrumental part of the breakaway, and then ended up attacking repeatedly on the climbs, setting out his stall for the King of the Mountains jersey and making sure we all sat up and took notice, despite the fact he's 14 minutes down on GC. And apparently he didn't know how many points were up for grabs at the top of each climb anyway. He was just going for it.
What?
So, yeah, the French press have gone in on quite hard on him for not knowing what he's actually doing up there. But he's going for a good time. He's just here. He's here for a good time, and he's here for our neon jersey, which he has claimed.
Nice. Okay, I want to do an honourable mention here, as we mentioned yesterday. Oscar Onley. I think he's drawing attention to himself for the fact that he is 22 years old, only his second tour, and he's at the pointy end with the big boys. And I'm reliably told by Benny that the Oscar Onley fan club, they're affectionately known as Only Fans instead of Only Fans. Yeah, so I like that. Clever. Maybe I'm the newest member of Only Fans.
Honourable mention for Jonathan Milan for all of the wrong reasons. He was arguing with Gamay. He's just really aggressive in all of the sprints, and you can't miss him, really, can you? On the sprint stages you can't miss him.
Fair. Okay, next one, the doomed jersey. This is for the rider or the team perhaps that's having the most cursed tour.
Yeah, and there's only one nominee for this. It's Team Cofidis.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've had a bit of a stinker. So from a crash on stage 1 on Montcassel for Benjamin Thomas in his quest for the KOM, to having their bikes stolen, to Brian Coquard's day from hell on stage 3, in which he was held responsible for Jasper Philipsen's crash, shouted at by Jonas Rickard and a whole bunch of keyboard warriors on the internet, to the extent to which his team have sort of threatened to take legal action, apparently.
Yeah, they're going to sue the whole internet.
Yeah. They've just not had a good time so far, and they take our doomed jersey, and we just hope that things get better from here on out for them.
Things can only get better, in the wise words of D. Ream.
We've also got an honourable mention for Astana's Yevgeny Fedorov. He's the Lantern Rouge after 4 stages, which is means that he's the rider in last position in the GC standings. He's had 2 crashes, and he did have one small highlight today. He got to set the fastest time in the time trial purely by dint of the fact that he went off first. It was obviously a time that didn't last very long, but you've got to be in it to win it, and he was up there and top of the standings for about 3 seconds.
Okay, last one. The People's Champion. Name self-explanatory, I think, and we could only think of one way to illustrate this jersey, and that's with the picture of The Rock, the original People's Champion.
The original, the OG. I don't think it's entirely fair for us to decide who the People's Champion is.
Yeah.
I feel like we should ask the people, and you are the people, and therefore we will put a poll out on the YouTube thingamajiggy, and you guys can decide which is the People's Champion.
Yeah, we've come up with 4 nominees.
Yeah, we have set a shortlist though.
Because the poll needs four it only has maximum 4 options. So we've tried to make a shortlist for you. So number 1, Victor Campenaerts, because he's an all-round good guy, I think, and he had an absolute whopper. No, a whopper sounds bad, doesn't it?
Whopping sounds positive.
Yeah, okay, nice one. Thanks for that. He had a whopping day yesterday. I think, the domestiques generally don't always get the limelight, and I think it's nice to celebrate, a super domestique, someone doing their time on the front for their team. Who else we got?
Naturally, Geraint Thomas, because he's an absolute legend. He is the Tour Tadej, which is granddad in Welsh.
Sorry, are you not exactly the same age?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So are you our Tadej?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Just saying, you kind of call someone a grand,
You can in the terms of professional
sport. He's 39
sport.
years old. It's very young.
In terms of life, yes. In terms of professional sport, he's very old.
Okay, fine.
He has more personality than Tour de France wins, is my quote.
So more personality than one. Because, he's won it. He has won it.
Well, yeah, he's had some fantastic results, but his personality is big, like really big.
Yeah, fair.
His personality is Pogacar's Palmares.
Oh, okay. Nice. I like that.
Third up, we've got Tim Wellens. He took one for the team when he took the King of the Mountains jersey for Tadej Pogacar. So he's certainly Poggy's champion, but could he also be yours? We saw him doing a wheelie yesterday to entertain the crowds, and certainly put in a big turn towards the end of the race. So yeah, Tim Wellens could be an option.
Nice, big Tim. And number 4, we felt like we could not include. Lots of double negatives there.
Everyone's going to now think it's Pogacar.
No, it's Mathieu van der Poel. I think that a lot of people really like him. He obviously is getting recognition in the yellow jersey at the moment, but he is a rock star. He is undeniably cool. Could he be your People's Champion? Perhaps. He's not an underdog. Arguably, maybe he shouldn't be on this alternative jersey list, but you tell us.
The reality is, if you look at his list of victories, it is absolutely bonkers. Like, it is bonkers how many races he's won in his career. Like, mind-blowing.
An actual champion and perhaps a People's Champion too. So we will put that poll out on YouTube. What's it called? Communities or whatever it is.
I don't even know what it's called, to be honest.
We'll put a poll out on YouTube. You'll probably be able to find it somewhere. And if you do find it, then have a vote, and we'll reveal the result of that tomorrow. The Wild Ones Pro Show is supported by Garmin.
And we are in some really good company, because Garmin also supports some of the very best riders in the Tour de France and the Tour de France fam.
Yeah, they work with teams like Vismalisa Bikes, Soudal Quickstep, SD Works Pro Time, FDJ Suez, and many more.
And because Garmin provides these teams with trainers, head units and wearables, they've got access to mountains of incredible data.
And they're going to share some of that data with us throughout the coming stages. So we'll get a really interesting insight into the physical demands of the most prestigious bike races in the world.
So please stay tuned for that. And once again, thanks to Garmin for supporting the show.
How would you like to win a Van Rysel RCR-F 105 Di2 worth £5,000.
I would love to. I've ridden that bike. It is proper good.
Well, sorry, Jimmy, you can't. But one of our UK listeners will, thanks to our sponsor, Van Rysel.
That's class. The RCR-F is literally a Tour de France race bike.
Yeah, the official bikes of Decathlon, AG2R, Le Mondial.
The 105 version has the same grade of carbon that the pros ride.
So to enter the draw to win this bike, click the link in our description. You must be a UK resident, age 18 or over, and T's and C's apply. One winner will be chosen by Van Rysel and contacted by them a week after the draw closes at midnight on August 4th. I sound like one of those radio adverts, don't I?
No, it wasn't fast enough. So good luck, and thanks to Van Rysel for supporting the Wild Ones Pro Show.
Okay, so stage 6, tomorrow's preview.
After a day off for many of the peloton, it's once more into the breach on stage 6, the second of this year's tour to clock in over 200 kilometres. It's 201.5 to be exact, and continues the Tour of the North, beginning in Bayeux of Tapestry fame, and heading south to Vier in the third of a trio of stages in the Normandy region. Another rolling stage, there are 6 categorised climbs on tomorrow's stage, along with another punchy uphill finish. It does contrast with stage 4 though, in that 2 of the climbs come early on in the stage, along with a very early intermediate sprint, which should tempt a breakaway to try their luck, but we should see a very fast start.
It feels like a really well-designed course this year, because we keep getting to these previews and I'm going, oh, I'm looking forward to that. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's like nice, because it does feel like a break getaway. There is a hell of a lot of comm points up for grabs. It could, if Van der Poel's feeling spicy, he might have a go, and the GC boys might let him go. The GC boys might go if Pogacar's still feeling fresh, which I'm sure he is. He might just go, screw it, I'll take the win on this one as well. Anything could happen.
Vingegaard could chip away at some time.
I feel like Visma are going to go out hard.
Yeah.
I think they have to. And I think they'll be up for it. And I actually think maybe Wout van Aert might poke his head above the parapet and even have a go at the stage if the team are all there towards the finish. But as Jimmy says, it could go any way. And it is a great course design. And because it seems as though there's no holds barred with the GC race this year, I keep thinking at some point UAE are going to put the brakes on, just say, let's just take a day off. And conserve some energy. But that's just not Pog, is it? That's just not how he races. So it's going to be another all-out day of chaos, I feel.
I feel like there was a couple of days last year where they did do that, but then Pog just went to the front on his own. And then everyone was going, oh, but Pog's completely isolated at the front on his own. He doesn't care. He absolutely doesn't care. He's just like, oh, don't worry, I'll just sort myself out.
Mm-hmm. And those tend to happen later on anyway, when he already had quite a bit of a lead, because it's still so tight and everyone wants to go into the mountains with a bit of an advantage. I don't know. The gloves are off. It could be really interesting. And I think, we'll see Lenny Martinez going for a crack at the King of the Mountains again. Hopefully he'll have remembered to check how many points there are at each of the categorised climb summits this time.
There's so many points available tomorrow. So maybe Pog is going to lose one of his jerseys.
Oh, so sad. Well, join us tomorrow when we'll bring you all of that news. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.